welcome to my Greek kitchen. I'm Maria Nicholas, and today I'm going to show you how to make spinach rolls, or spanakopitès as they say in Greek. I'd like to go over the ingredient list with you. First, we have 1 pound of phyllo pastry sheets, a half a pound of feta cheese crumbled, a half a pound of ricotta cheese, 3 large eggs beaten, 3 large scallions minced, 3/4 pound of unsalted clarified butter, 2 pounds of fresh spinach, a 1/4 cup of parsley minced, 3 tablespoons of fresh dill minced, a 1/3 cup of fine breadcrumbs, 3 cloves of garlic minced, and salt and pepper to taste. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the ingredients that I've used. First, I like to use fresh spinach as opposed to frozen. Look how beautiful this spinach is. I like to use organic baby spinach, and then I slice it. Next, I want to tell you about the feta cheese. Always buy your feta cheese in a block and then crumble it yourself, because when you buy it in a block, it's been soaking in its brine and it's not dry. When you buy already crumbled cheese, you don't know how long it's been sitting crumbled in the container. The next is the ricotta cheese. Fresh dill minced always is more flavorful than the powdered type. And the rest of the ingredients we'll go over as we use them. Then hiding under this slightly moistened kitchen towel is our phyllo dough, and we keep it covered because it dries very quickly. Phyllo dough now comes in 2 sizes. This size that most of you have seen, and then it comes in a smaller size that fits in our 9 by 13 inch pans. We're going to use the large this time. Okay, let's get started. First step is to parboil the onions. Now I have a 1/4 cup of water sizzling in the pot, and I'm going to put the onions in. The reason I like to parboil the onions is that onions are a little harder in texture than most of the other ingredients, and we like to soften them up a little bit. This will just take a couple seconds, and then we add the garlic. I don't add the garlic at the same time because garlic is more tender and we don't want it to burn, get bitter, and ruin its flavor. You see the onions starting to sizzle now? This will just take about a minute. Our onions are sizzling and softened, and now it's time to add the garlic. At the same time, I'm going to add the butter and give it a little stir. I'm going to add the parsley and the dill. I'm going to get all the dill for all that flavor, and lower my heat because I don't want any of this to burn. Okay, the next step is the spinach. Now it may look like a lot of spinach, but when the spinach wilts, it'll be the perfect size. The spinach is wilting, and I'm stirring it to incorporate all the herbs. Now I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon of pepper. Freshly ground pepper is always best. And a little bit of salt, about a half a teaspoon of salt, because remember, feta cheese is very salty, but we want to add a little salt to the vegetables. And also breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs, fine breadcrumbs, we use to take up any of the excess moisture. And now we're just going to let the spinach wilt a little further. Remember how much spinach we had? Look how far down it's gotten. As the spinach continues to wilt, I'm going to cover it and leave it cook for about 5 minutes until it continues to wilt. In this step, we're going to incorporate the 2 cheeses and the eggs. and get them ready for the spinach mixture. And the eggs. And let's give it a little blend. I've just removed the spinach from the heat. And as you can see, remember that big pile of spinach we had? Well, here it is now. What I'm going to do is put it in this other bowl and let it cool down a little bit before we incorporate it in with the eggs. Now that the spinach has sufficiently cooled, I'm going to incorporate it in with the eggs and the cheeses. The aroma is great. Okay, here we are mixing it. We want to mix it thoroughly, so it'll just take a couple of minutes. In order to wilt the spinach, it took about 10 minutes. But you see the difference? The 2 pounds of spinach, how it wilted down to just a small amount. Our mixture is ready, and now the fun begins. We take 1 piece of phyllo dough and butter it thoroughly with some melted clarified butter. The reason we clarify the butter is to get rid of the milk solids that could make the phyllo very soggy. Now, don't be discouraged if your phyllo comes out sometimes with holes like this one has a few of them. It doesn't matter because we're going to layer the phyllo dough. This is a second layer of phyllo dough that I've put down, and I'm going to butter it thoroughly, and then we're going to cut it in pieces. Okay, depending on what size roll you want to make, I just marked mine so that I have 5 equal pieces. And it's good to use a serrated knife because it cuts very nicely down the 2 sheets of phyllo dough. See how easily it cuts? And it's good to do this on a piece of marble or your countertop. I wouldn't recommend doing it on a laminated countertop. Then we take the filling and put it in the center. I like to use a little scoop. Makes it a little easier. And then I'll show you how to roll them. Okay, now it's time to roll these little cuties. Just be sure that the filling doesn't expand over the edges. And just gently roll it up. The reason I like to make these in rolls is because if you're not going to bake them all at one time, you can put them in the freezer, freeze them, and as you have an event, you can bake. You don't need a sheet that's greased because you have a lot of butter on there. The butter helps the phyllo puff out. I'm ready to put our first pan into the oven, a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes. The spinach rolls have finished baking. Don't they look beautiful? The good thing about this recipe is that after you roll them and before you bake them, you can put them in an airtight container between several layers of wax paper. And as you need them for an event or a party, you can take a few out at a time and bake them. I can't wait to taste one. These are delicious, and they go so well with a nice glass of wine. Yes. This recipe and others can be found in my cookbook, Yaya's Favorite Greek Recipes. The book can be purchased at Amazon.com. Kali Oreksi.